I wiped my hands on my apron and reached out to hug my baby girl when she walked through that door. Been 3 months since I'd seen Tanisha, and my heart was just about to burst. But she flinched back from me, stepped back like I had something on me she didn't want to catch. She turned to the man beside her, tall fellow in a suit that probably cost more than my whole month's rent. "Desmond," she said, smooth as glass, "this is Maddie, the hired help I told you about." Lord, I just stood there, right there in my own living room, the one I'd been paying for since before she was born. My heart stopped beating for a second, I swear it did. I looked down at my hands, these old, cracked hands that were shaking something terrible. I pulled them behind my back real slow, hiding them like they were something shameful. The room got so quiet, I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Desmond smiled at me, polite but distant, like I was part of the furniture. He handed me his heavy wool coat, and I took it, didn't say a word, just took that man's coat and walked to the closet like I was somebody's maid. Before I go any further, go on and tap that like button for me if you don't mind. It lets me know somebody out there is listening. And if your heart feels led, subscribe too. I don't get much company these days, so hearing from folks means more than you know. Tell me where you're watching from. I read those little messages at night, and they make this house feel a little less quiet. I hung that coat up with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. I stood there at that closet for a minute, just breathing, trying to make sense of what just happened. When I turned back around, I caught Tanisha's eye. I was begging her, just begging with everything in me for her to tell this man the truth, tell him who I really was. She looked right through me, like I was glass, like I was nothing. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? This is my daughter, and she just erased me in my own house? Desmond was already walking toward the living room, looking around at my things, my photos, my furniture, my life. "Can we get some water, Maddie?" Tanisha called out, not even looking at me. Her voice was different, sharper, cold. "Yes, ma'am," I heard myself say. Ma'am, to my own child. I went to the kitchen, my legs feeling heavy. I could hear them laughing in there, talking about some restaurant they went to last week. I filled 2 glasses with ice water, my hands still shaking so bad the ice cubes kept missing the glass and hitting the counter. I'd spent all morning cleaning this house, scrubbing floors on my knees even though my arthritis was acting up. Used so much bleach my hands were stinging and raw. I wanted everything perfect for her, for my baby girl. Now those same hands, the ones that hurt from making things nice for her, those were the hands she was ashamed of, the reason she couldn't even call me mama in front of this man. I put the glasses on a tray, but good one I saved for company. My hands left little water spots on the glass from where they were still damp. I tried to wipe them off with my apron, but it just made it worse. Walking back into that living room felt like walking through mud. Everything was moving slow. Desmond was sitting on my couch, the one I'd paid off in installments over 2 years. Tanisha was next to him, laughing at something he said, touching his arm gentle-like. She looked so pretty, I remember thinking that. She had on a cream-colored dress, her hair done up real nice. She looked successful, happy, everything I'd worked for. I set the water down on the coffee table, being careful not to make noise. "Thank you, Maddie," Desmond said, real polite. He had nice manners, I'll give him that. Tanisha didn't say nothing to me, just picked up her glass and kept talking to him about some vacation they were planning. The Bahamas, she said. She'd never been nowhere like that. I was glad for her. Even in that moment, I was glad my baby was going to see beautiful places. I stood there for a second, not knowing if I should leave or stay. Finally, Tanisha glanced at me with this look that said, "Why are you still here?" I went back to the kitchen, stood at the sink, and looked at my hands under the running water. 30 years I'd been cleaning houses. 30 years of scrubbing and mopping and polishing. These hands put her through college. These hands made sure she never had to do what I did. And she couldn't even look at them without feeling ashamed. I was pulling out the chicken I'd been marinating when Tanisha came rushing into the kitchen. Desmond had gone to use the bathroom. I could hear the water running down the hall. "Mama," she started, but then caught herself and looked back toward the hallway. "Maddie," she hissed, coming close to me. "Don't embarrass me, please." Her voice was desperate, but not soft, not kind, just scared. "Baby, why you doing this?" I whispered back. "Why can't you just tell him?" "Tell him what?" She cut me off, her eyes getting hard. She looked down at my hands, the ones covered in cuts and calluses and dry, cracked skin. I saw her face change, saw the disgust there. It was quick, but I caught it. "He comes from a different world, Mama. His family has money, real money. I don't want him thinking we're low class." Low class. The words hit me like a slap. "I worked hard for everything we got," I said, my voice shaking. "Ain't nothing low about honest work." "Just please keep your voice down. Cook the food, be polite, but don't talk too much. Don't mention anything about before." She glanced at my hands again. "And maybe wear some lotion or something. Your hands look rough." I heard the bathroom door open. Tanisha straightened up real quick, put on a smile, and walked back out to Desmond like nothing happened. I stood there holding that raw chicken, feeling my eyes burn. I didn't cry, though. Not yet. Dinner was ready about an hour later. I'd made Tanisha's favorite, smothered chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread. The house smelled good, like Sunday dinner used to smell when she was little. I set the table real nice, used the good plates, the ones with the gold trim I only brought out for special occasions, put out cloth napkins, made everything look proper. When I called them to eat, they came in still laughing about something. I pulled out a chair to sit down with them, like I always did. This was my table, my house, my food. Tanisha cleared her throat, loud, real sharp-like. I looked at her, confused. She tilted her head toward the kitchen, her eyes telling me everything her mouth wouldn't say. "Oh," I said quietly. "Y'all need anything else before you eat?" "No, we're fine," Desmond said, sitting down. He still didn't know. Bless him, he really thought I was the help. I fixed myself a plate and took it to the small counter in the kitchen, the one by the back window where I usually set my purse. I sat on the stool there, alone, listening to them talk and laugh in the next room. Tanisha was telling him about her new promotion at work. He was so proud of her, asking good questions, being supportive. They were toasting with sweet tea, talking about their future, about wedding plans, about babies someday. And I sat in my kitchen, in my house, eating my dinner alone, listening to my daughter plan a whole life that didn't include the woman who gave her life. I looked down at my plate. The food tasted like nothing. Over the next few weeks, it became normal. That's the part that hurt most, how normal it got. Tanisha started bringing Desmond over 2, sometimes 3 times a week. Every time, I was Maddie, the help, the woman who cooked and cleaned and fetched things. She'd call me to bring coffee. "Maddie, can you make us some coffee? Desmond likes his with cream, no sugar." She'd ask me to iron his shirts when he'd stay the night in what used to be Tanisha's old bedroom. "Maddie, can you press this for tomorrow? He has an important meeting." Never Mama. Always Maddie. I swallowed it every time. Swallowed my pride, swallowed my hurt, swallowed the words I wanted to say. I told myself it was temporary, that once they got married, once everything was settled, she'd tell him the truth, that this was just, I don't know, nerves or something. I wanted her to be happy. That's what I kept telling myself late at night when my chest felt tight and my eyes wouldn't stay dry. I'd raised her by myself since her daddy left when she was 2. Every choice I made was for her. Every extra shift, every missed meal so she could eat, every time I went without so she could have, it was all for her happiness. If this is what made her happy, if having this man, this good man with his nice job and his nice family, if that required me to step back and be small for a while, then I'd do it. At least that's what I told myself. That's the lie I lived with for those weeks. But Lord, it hurt. It hurt every single time. One evening, Desmond asked me to polish his shoes. He had a big dinner meeting the next day, something important for his job. He worked in finance, something with investments that I didn't quite understand. I took those shoes and polished them real nice. They were expensive, I could tell by the leather. Soft and supple, probably cost more than my whole month's electric bill. When I brought them back, set them down by the door all shined up, Desmond reached for his wallet. He pulled out a $20 bill, crisp and new, and held it out to me. "For your trouble," he said, smiling kind, "you do good work, Maddie." I froze, just stared at that money. A tip. He was tipping me in my own house. I looked at Tanisha. She was standing right there watching this happen. This was her chance. She could stop this. She could tell him, "Desmond, that's my mother. You don't tip my mother." But she didn't. She just smiled at him, touched his arm gentle, and said, "That's sweet of you, baby. I'm sure Maddie appreciates the extra money." My hand moved on its own, reached out and took that $20 bill. My fingers were trembling so bad I almost dropped it. "Thank you, sir," I heard myself whisper. Sir. I called my daughter's fiancé sir while she stood there and watched me take tip money, while she let him think I was hired help who needed his charity. That 20 burned in my pocket all night. I couldn't even look at it, just left it on my dresser, staring at it in the dark. They started planning the wedding in earnest. Tanisha would bring her laptop over, and she and Desmond would sit at my dining table looking at venues. Big, fancy places, hotels downtown, country clubs. I'd bring them snacks, refill their drinks, and listen to them talk about flowers and photographers and live bands. They were planning something beautiful, something expensive. "My parents want to host an engagement party next month," Desmond said one evening. "Something formal, maybe 100 guests." "That sounds wonderful," Tanisha said, squeezing his hand. "Where are you thinking?" "The Grand Hotel. My mother already called about their ballroom." They kept talking, flipping through pictures on the computer. I was wiping down the kitchen counter, half listening, when I heard Tanisha mention something about a parents' table. "We'll have your mom and dad at the head table, of course," she was saying, "right up front where everyone can see them." I waited for her to mention me, to say where I'd be sitting. I wasn't expecting the head table. I knew his parents would be there, but surely she'd say something about her own mama. She didn't. Later, after Desmond left, I asked her. My voice was small, scared almost. "Baby, where am I gonna sit at the wedding?" She didn't look up from her phone. Actually, Mama, I was going to talk to you about that. We're going to need help managing the catering staff, making sure everything runs smooth. You know how these big events can get. You want me to work your wedding? Not work, just help out. You're so good at that stuff. I stood there in the doorway. I'm your mama, Tanisha. I know that, she snapped. Then softer, I know. But this is important to me. Please. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my room with the lamp on, just looking at my hands. Really looking at them. They were ugly, no denying that. The skin was dry and cracked, especially around the knuckles. Years of harsh chemicals and hot water had left them scarred and rough. My nails were short, broken in places. I had calluses on my palms that would never go away. But these hands, Lord, these hands had a story. Every crack, every scar, every rough patch came from loving her. From working double shifts at the hospital cleaning floors so I could pay for her college. From scrubbing bathrooms in office buildings at night so she could have new school clothes. From washing dishes in restaurants on weekends so she could take piano lessons and join the cheerleading squad. I worked myself to the bone for that girl. Never took a vacation, never bought myself nothing nice. Wore the same winter coat for 15 years so she could have the things the other kids had. And now, these hands were something to hide, something shameful. I remembered when she was little, maybe 5 or 6. She'd grab my hand when we crossed the street, hold it tight like it was the safest place in the world. She'd trace the lines on my palm and tell me they look like a map. "Where do they go, Mama?" she'd ask. "Everywhere you need to go, baby," I'd tell her. When did my hands stop being safety? When did they become something to be ashamed of? I put lotion on them that night, rubbed it in real good until they were soft and shiny. But by morning, they were cracked and dry again. Some things don't change, I guess. The engagement party was coming up in 2 weeks. I went downtown on my day off, took the bus to the nice stores where Tanisha used to window shop when she was younger. I found a dress, a blue one, modest but pretty. It had little sleeves and came down to my knees. Nothing too fancy, but nice enough for a hotel party. It cost more than I usually spent on myself, but I figured, it's my daughter's engagement party, I should look presentable. I brought it home in a nice shopping bag, feeling a little flutter of hope in my chest. Maybe this would be different. Maybe at the party, away from the house, she'd introduce me properly, let me stand with her and smile for pictures. When Tanisha came over that evening, I showed her the dress, pulled it out of the bag real careful, held it up for her to see. "What do you think, baby, for your party?" She looked at it, then looked at me. Her face got that expression, the one I'd started to recognize, the one that said I'd done something wrong. "Mama, the dress code is formal, like really formal, gowns and tuxedos." She touched the fabric between her fingers. It's nice, but it's not really, it wouldn't fit." "I could look for something else," I said quickly, "maybe something longer." "No, honestly, you'd probably be more comfortable at home anyway. You know how these things are." Lots of standing, loud music, people you don't know. It would just be exhausting for you. My hands holding that dress started to shake. "I want to be there for you." "I know, and I appreciate that, but maybe you could watch the house? Make sure everything's okay here?" She left the dress sitting on the couch when she went home. I folded it back into the bag real careful and put it in my closet. Didn't even try to return it, just couldn't face explaining to the store lady why I didn't need it anymore. Desmond started spending more time at the house. He was kind to me, always polite, always saying please and thank you. He'd ask about my day sometimes, make small talk while waiting for Tanisha to get ready. One afternoon, he asked me how long I'd been working for the family. I opened my mouth. This was it. This was my chance to tell him the truth, to say, I'm not working for the family, I am the family. But before I could get a word out, Tanisha came around the corner. She'd heard him. She jumped in real quick, smooth as anything. "Oh, Maddie's been with us forever," she said, touching my shoulder like we were friendly, like she cared. "She's really more of a family friend than anything. She needed work and we needed help, so it just worked out." "That's nice," Desmond said, nodding. "Not many people help others out like that anymore." "Well, we do what we can," Tanisha said. Then to me, "Maddie, could you grab my phone charger from upstairs?" I went upstairs, sat on her old bed for a minute in what used to be her childhood room, the room I'd painted pink when she was 7, the room where I'd read her stories every night and tucked her in and told her she could be anything she wanted to be. Family friend, that's what I'd become. She'd erased me, completely rewrote our history to make it fit into her new life. I wasn't her mother anymore. I was just Charity, a poor woman she was nice enough to let work for her. I got the charger and brought it down, handed it to her without a word. "Thank you," she said, bright and cheerful. Then back to Desmond. "So, about that restaurant reservation." I stood there for a moment, invisible, and then went to the kitchen to start on dinner. I found the papers by accident. I'd gone to clear the table after they'd had breakfast one Saturday morning, and there they were. Legal documents with official-looking letterhead spread out between the coffee cups and toast crumbs. At first, I didn't read them. Wasn't my business. But then I saw my address on one of them. This address. My house. I picked up the papers with shaking hands, read through them slow, trying to understand the legal words, but the meaning was clear enough. Deed transfer, property assessment, market value estimate. Tanisha was planning to sell my house. This house I'd worked 40 years to pay off, the house where I'd raised her, where every room held memories of her growing up. She was going to sell it. At the bottom of one page, I saw a note in her handwriting. Could net around $285K, enough for venue deposit plus honeymoon upgrade. I had to sit down. My legs just gave out. I sat right there on the floor by the dining table, those papers in my lap. She'd been telling Desmond this house was hers. That's what it said in the documents, that she was the owner, and I was just staying in the guest room. The guest room? I didn't even have a guest room. This whole house was mine, every square inch paid for with my sweat and tears. But she'd made up a story, told her fiancé she owned property, and now she was planning to sell that property, my home, to pay for their fancy wedding. I sat there on that floor for I don't know how long, until my hips started aching from the hard surface, until I heard the front door open and their voices coming back from wherever they'd gone. I got up off that floor and met them in the living room, still had those papers in my hand, gripping them so tight they were getting wrinkled. "Tanisha," I said, my voice shaking so bad I barely recognized it, "we need to talk." She looked at the papers, and I saw something flash across her face. Not guilt, not shame, just annoyance that I'd found them. "Desmond, baby, could you give us a minute?" she said, all sweet. He nodded, went outside to make a phone call. Soon as that door closed, her face changed, got hard. You went through my things? These were on the table, I said, on my table, in my house. About that, she crossed her arms. Mama, be realistic. This house is too big for you. You're getting older. You don't need all this space. And Desmond and I, we need a good start. The venue we want costs. This is my house, Tanisha. I worked 40 years for this house. And I'm your daughter. Don't you want me to have a good life? A good wedding? You want me to start my marriage in debt? The way she said it, like I was being selfish, like I was the one doing something wrong. I can't believe you're doing this, I whispered. I can't believe. Can't believe what? That I'm trying to move up in the world? That I'm trying to build something with a good man? Her voice got sharp. You want me to have a good life, don't you? Or do you want me to end up like you, scrubbing floors and living alone? Those words, Lord, those words cut deeper than any knife could. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and I didn't recognize the person standing there. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house. After they left, I couldn't move, just sat on the couch staring at nothing. My chest hurt, not like a heart attack, more like something inside me had cracked and was slowly breaking apart. My hands were shaking. They did that sometimes when I got stressed. The arthritis would flare up, make my joints swell and ache. I tried to open a jar of peanut butter to make myself some lunch, but I couldn't get the lid to budge. My hands just weren't strong enough. I was still trying when Tanisha came back a few hours later, just walked in without knocking, like she owned the place, which I guess she thought she did. We need to talk about this, she said. I held up that jar, my hand shaking with the effort. Can you open this? She looked at me like I was stupid. Seriously? Right now? Please. She snatched it from me, twisted the lid off easy, and set it on the counter hard. There, happy? Thank you, I said quietly. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes at me. If you can't handle basic things anymore, maybe you should think about finding somewhere else to go. Somewhere with, I don't know, assisted living or whatever. I stared at her. I'm 68 years old, Tanisha. I ain't dying. I just got arthritis. Well, it's getting worse. And if you can't do the work around here anymore, I don't know what you expect me to. She stopped, caught herself, but the where were already out there. The work. That's all I was to her now. A worker who wasn't working good enough no more. I raised you better than this, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. You raised me to want better. Now you're mad that I got it. The worst day came 2 weeks later. Desmond's parents were coming to town, and he wanted them to meet Tanisha. He asked if they could have dinner at her place since it was so nice and homey. I heard them talking about it, heard Tanisha agree, all excited. That morning, she showed up with a shopping bag. Inside was a uniform, a black dress with a white apron, the kind maids wear on TV shows. Put this on, she said. Tanisha, no, I ain't wearing. His parents are very traditional, very formal. They expect a certain standard. Please, Mama, just this once, just for tonight. Baby, just tell them who I am. Tell them the truth. I can't. Her voice cracked a little. He's already told them about the house, about me having staff. If I tell him now that I lied, he'll leave me. His family doesn't accept liars." "But you did lie." "Because I had to." She was crying now, mascara running. "You don't understand. His mother already thinks I'm not good enough. She wanted him to marry this girl from their country club. If she finds out I come from this," she gestured at me, at my clothes, at everything I was, "she'll make him break up with me. I know she will." I looked at that uniform, at my daughter's tears, at the choice in front of me. And God help me, I put it on. That night, I served dinner to Desmond's parents in my own home while wearing a maid's uniform. I brought them drinks, I cleared their plates, I called them Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, while they called me nothing at all. Tanisha laughed and smiled and played the perfect hostess in my living room, and I was the help. When they left, Mrs. Henderson told Tanisha, "You have such a lovely home, dear, and your staff is very well trained." I stood in the kitchen after they all left and looked down at that black dress and white apron, and something inside me just stopped. Stopped hurting, stopped hoping, stopped everything. I wasn't sad no more. I was just done. That night, I couldn't sleep. Laid in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle and creak. This house that had been my whole world for so long. I thought about my mama. She'd been a maid too, back in the day, worked for white families in the big houses on the hill. She'd come home tired every night, her knees aching from scrubbing floors, but she'd been proud. Honest work for honest pay, she'd always say. She died when I was 25. Never got to see me buy this house, never got to meet Tanisha. But I always wondered what she'd think, if she'd be proud that her daughter didn't have to clean other people's houses. Except now I was, in my own home. I got up around 3 a.m. and walked through the house in the dark, touched the walls I'd painted, looked at the floors I'd chosen. This place held 40 years of my life. Every corner had a memory. But it wasn't a home no more. It was just a stage, a set where Tamisha was playing out her new life, and I was a prop she was ashamed of. I went to the kitchen and made myself some tea, sat at that small counter where I'd been eating my meals alone for weeks now, and I realized something. This wasn't just about shame no more. This wasn't just my daughter being embarrassed by her poor mama. This was cruelty. This was meanness. This was a person who looked at another person's pain and didn't care, as long as she got what she wanted. And that person was my child, the baby I'd held and loved and sacrificed everything for. But she didn't love me back. Maybe she never did. Maybe I was just useful to her, and now I wasn't even that no more. I finished my tea and washed the cup, and standing there at the sink, I made a decision. Not out of anger, not out of hurt, just out of necessity. I had to save myself, because nobody else was going to do it. The next morning, I didn't wait for them to come over. I just started packing, quiet-like, methodical. I pulled out the old suitcases from the back of my closet, started folding my clothes, my pictures, the things that mattered. Not the furniture, that could stay. Not the dishes or the fancy stuff Tanisha probably wanted for her new life. Just my personal things, the irreplaceable things. While I was packing, I called my sister down in Georgia, Vernell. I hadn't talked to her in maybe 3 years. Tanisha had always said she was too country, said her house was too small and cluttered, said it was embarrassing how she still talked with that thick Southern accent. So I'd let that relationship fade, stopped visiting, stopped calling as much. Another sacrifice I'd made for Tanisha's comfort. The phone rang 4 times before Vernell picked up. "Maddie?" She sounded shocked. "That you?" "Hey, V," my voice cracked. "I know it's been a while." "Girl, where you been? I've been worried sick. You don't call, you don't write." "I know, I'm sorry. I got caught up in things. But V, I need to ask you something." I took a breath. "Can I come stay with you for a while? I need to leave here." Silence on the other end. Then, soft and warm, "Oh, honey, what happened?" I told her. Not everything. I couldn't get through all of it, but enough. About Tanisha, about Desmond, about the uniform and the papers, and all of it. Vernell was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Then she said, "I'll leave the light on for you, Maddie. Come on home." Home. When she said that word, something in my chest loosened just a little. I hung up and kept packing. The next morning, while Tanisha and Desmond were at work, I went to see a lawyer. Found one on the internet who did free consultations. His office was small, just one room above a tax place, but he was nice, patient. I showed him the papers Tanisha had drawn up, told him what was happening. He looked them over, shaking his head. "Mrs. Williams, these documents aren't legal. She can't sell your house without your signature. The deed is in your name only, right?" "Yes, sir." "Then you're fine. She has no claim to this property." He looked at me over his glasses. "But I'd suggest you protect yourself. Make sure everything's documented properly. Maybe even consider selling it yourself if you're planning to leave." I sat there thinking. I'd planned to leave this house to Tanisha in my will. Always thought she'd want it someday. That maybe she'd raise her kids here, keep the family home going. But she didn't want the house. She wanted the money from selling it. "How fast can a house sell?" I asked. "If you price it right, few weeks maybe. There's always cash buyers looking for properties." I made some calls that afternoon. Got a real estate agent to come look at the house. She said it needed some updating, but the bones were good. She knew an investor who paid cash for houses in my neighborhood. By dinner time, I had an offer. Not as much as it was probably worth, but enough. And it was fast, closing in 2 weeks. I signed the papers that evening. Didn't tell nobody. Just signed them and set the whole thing in motion. This house was mine. I'd earned it. And if I was going to lose it anyway, at least I'd decide where the money went. They came home 2 days later to find most of my things already gone. I'd shipped boxes to Vernell's place, donated furniture I didn't need, kept only what mattered. I was sitting on the porch when they pulled up, had my last 2 suitcases beside me. The moving truck had just left. And right there in the front yard was a sign, "Sold." Tanisha got out of the car so fast she almost tripped. Her face was, I'd never seen her look like that. Panicked, angry, scared. "What did you do?" she screamed, running up to the porch. "What the hell did you do?" Desmond got out slower, looking confused, looking at the sign, then at me, then at the house with half-empty windows. "I sold my house," I said calmly. "It's mine to sell." You can't just," she was shaking. I had plans for this house. You knew that. You knew we needed this money. For your wedding venue, I said. I know. Then why would you? She stopped, looked at me hard. You did this on purpose, to hurt me, to ruin my life. I stood up slow. My knees ached, but I stood. Baby, I didn't ruin nothing. I just stopped letting you ruin me. Desmond came up the steps. Tanisha, what's going on? Why does Maddie need your permission to sell her house? The way he said it, I could tell he was starting to understand, starting to piece things together. Tanisha turned to him, tears streaming. It's not what it looks like. She's not the help, Desmond said slowly. Is she? It wasn't a question. Silence, heavy silence that pressed down on all of us. I looked at Desmond straight on. This good man who'd been lied to for months, who thought he knew the woman he was marrying. No, son, I said quietly. I'm not the help. I'm her mother. And I'm retiring from both jobs today. I held up my hands, these cracked, tired, worn-out hands that had worked so hard for so long. These hands raised her, clothed her, fed her, put her through school, bought this house we're standing in, and she's been so ashamed of them that she couldn't even tell you who I was. Desmond looked at Tanisha. His face was... I felt sorry for him in that moment. He looked hurt, betrayed. Tanisha? His voice was quiet. Tell me this isn't true. She was crying hard now, mascara running down her face. Desmond, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for months? That you made your own mother pretend to be a maid? His voice was getting louder. I tipped her, Tamisha. I tipped your mother. And you let me. I was trying to protect us. Your mother already doesn't think I'm good enough. If she knew I came from... She gestured at me again, that same disgusted gesture. She would have made you leave me. So you thought lying was better? He stepped back from her. Who are you? I'm the same person I've always been. No, he said, you're not. The woman I thought I knew wouldn't do this, wouldn't treat anyone like this, especially not her own mother. Tanisha turned on me then, her face twisted up with something ugly. This is your fault, she hissed. You ruined everything. You couldn't just stay quiet and let me have this one thing. You had to ruin my life on purpose. I didn't ruin nothing, baby, I said, and I was surprised how calm my voice was. I just stopped letting you use me. Use you? I was trying to help you. I was giving you a place to stay, giving you purpose. It was my house. The words came out louder than I meant them to. My house that I paid for. You didn't give me nothing except shame. She lunged at me then, but Desmond caught her arm, held her back. Don't, he said firmly. Just don't. I picked up my bags. A taxi was coming. I'd called it earlier. Right on time, I saw it pulling up to the curb. I love you, Tanisha, I said. I always will, but I can't do this no more. I walked down those porch steps for the last time. Each step felt heavy, but also lighter somehow, like I was leaving weight behind instead of carrying it with me. Tanisha was shouting behind me. "Fine, leave, see if I care. I don't need you anyway. I never needed you." I put my bags in the trunk of that taxi. The driver, an older black man with kind eyes, helped me load them. He didn't ask questions, just gave me a gentle nod. Before I got in, I turned back one last time. Desmond was standing at the edge of the porch, his hands in his pockets. He looked lost. Tanisha was still crying, but now she looked scared, like she was just realizing what she'd done, what she'd lost. "Mama, please," she called out, her voice breaking. "Please don't go. We can figure this out. I'm sorry, okay? Just don't leave me." For a second, just a second, I almost went back. That's what mothers do, right? We forgive, we come back, we sacrifice ourselves over and over because that's love. But then I looked at my hands resting on the taxi door, and I thought about Fernell's voice on the phone, about the little house in Georgia with the garden out back, about sitting on a porch where nobody would make me feel small. "Goodbye, baby," I said. I got in that taxi and didn't look back as we drove away. The ride to the bus station was long. I watched the city pass by through the window, all these streets I'd walked for years. The hospital where I used to clean, the grocery store where I'd stretch every dollar, the church where I'd prayed every Sunday for my daughter's success. I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears running down my face while the driver pretended not to notice. "You okay, miss?" he finally asked. "I will be," I said. The bus ride to Georgia took 11 hours. 11 hours of watching the landscape change from city to suburbs to country. 11 hours of thinking about everything that had happened. I kept seeing Tanisha's face in my mind. Not the angry face from today, but her face when she was little, when she'd climb into my lap and make me read the same story 5 times, when she'd hold my hand crossing the street, when she'd tell me I was the best mama in the whole world. Where did that little girl go? When did she learn to be so cold? Or maybe I taught her wrong somehow. Maybe by always putting her first, by always sacrificing myself, I taught her that I didn't matter, that my feelings, my needs, my dignity, they were less important than hers. Maybe I'd made myself small for so long that she started to believe I was supposed to be small. A woman across the aisle from me smiled. She was older, maybe 70, with gray hair and a warm face. "Long trip?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Going to stay with my sister." "That's nice. Family's important." I nodded, fresh tears coming. "Yes, ma'am, it is." She reached across and patted my hand, my rough, cracked hand. Didn't flinch, didn't pull away, just patted it gentle and said, "Whatever you're carrying, honey, you can put it down when you get where you're going." Those words broke something open in me. I cried harder then, and she just let me. Didn't try to fix it or stop it, just let me cry. By the time we crossed into Georgia, my tears had dried up. I looked at my hands in my lap, still cracked, still rough, still showing every year of hard work. But they were mine. And they'd carried me this far. They'd carry me the rest of the way, too. Vernell was waiting at the bus station when I arrived. Soon as I saw her standing there with her arms open wide, I started crying again. She hugged me tight, rocking me back and forth like I was a child. "I got you," she whispered. "I got you, sister. You're home now." Her house was small, just like Tanisha had said. 2 bedrooms, old furniture, a little cluttered. But it was warm. It was real. and nobody there made me feel like I needed to hide. That first week, I barely left the guest room, just slept and cried and slept some more. Vernell would bring me food, sit with me without talking, just being there. Slowly, I started to heal, started to remember who I was before I became just Tanisha's mother, before I made myself small to make her big. Vernell had a garden out back, tomatoes, collard greens, some flowers. She asked if I wanted to help tend it, and I said yes. So now my hands get dirty from planting instead of cleaning. They get cracked from soil instead of bleach. And when Vernell holds my hand to pray before dinner, she never once looks at them with shame. I've been here 6 months now, got my own little routine. Wake up early, have coffee on the porch, tend the garden, go to the little church down the road on Sundays. Simple, quiet, peaceful. My hands are still rough, still cracked, but now when I look at them, I see something different. I see survival. I see strength. I see a woman who finally chose herself. I heard from my cousin Paulette that Desmond called off the wedding about 2 weeks after I left. Once he started looking into things, he found all the lies. Not just about me, but about money, about her job, about a lot of things. Tanisha had been building this whole fantasy life, and it all came crashing down. Paulette said Tanisha tried to call me, left messages, sent letters to Vernell's address. I haven't listened to the voicemails, haven't opened the letters. They're in a box in my closet. Maybe someday I'll be ready. Maybe not. I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm doing it because I have to protect myself. I have to love myself enough to stay away from people who hurt me, even if that person is my own child. That's the hardest thing I've ever had to learn. That loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. That being a mother doesn't mean sacrificing your own dignity. That you can love someone from a distance when being close to them hurts too much. Do I miss her? Every single day. Every single day I think about her. Wonder if she's okay. Wonder if she understands now what she did. Wonder if she ever really loved me or just loved what I could do for her. But I don't call. I don't reach out because I know that if I go back, nothing will change. She'll cry and apologize, and I'll forgive her because that's what I do. And then slowly, little by little, it'll go back to how it was, and I'll end up broken all over again. I can't do that. Not anymore. I'm too old and too tired to keep breaking. So I stay here in Georgia, in this little house with my sister, tending my garden and learning how to rest. My hands are finally resting, and that's enough. If you've gone through something like this, you can share your story down below. Nobody should hold heavy things alone.